reviewing the staff. I mean, so much so that when the next group of people came in, we would jokingly say, we know about the bathrooms, okay? Because apparently the school, when it was designed with insufficient facilities for that. In the last 20, 30 years, codes have changed pretty dramatically, and buildings they're calculated on occupancy levels. So when the occupancy level of the school is determined, it will be prescriptive as to the minimum amount of facilities they must have. So then the other issue comes down to distribution. So we leave a lot of that up to the architects and engineers. So what I can tell you for sure is that the new facility will have sufficient bathrooms for students, for staff, and the public. And they will make sure that they get located strategically where they're going to be needed the most. But I can't tell you what the count is right now. All I can tell you is that it will meet the code, and it may in fact even exceed the code, but it cannot be below the code.
I think it was more.
And they also will be much larger than what you're seeing in terms of there were questions about the sizes of the stalls, and obviously these will be ADA compliant. They will not look, the bathrooms will not physically look like what the bathrooms look like now.
I think the questions were more related to the category of bathrooms. There were many questions relating to that. And I think it was more, what I was kind of taking is what we're required to have as far as bathroom categories, and what we're choosing to have as far as bathroom categories.
I'm not sure I follow, quite frankly. I mean, there's men's room and there's women's rooms. Then
Yep. They're gonna,
I'll say
I mess up these things usually.
There
so
are-
let me take-
there are a set of number of bathrooms designated as boy bathrooms, girl bathrooms, and non-binary bathrooms. The question that we were getting, including the question that I was getting, Joe was trying to get to, and I was asked last night as well, is why do we have 3 non-binary bathrooms?
Oh, okay. We many times when we develop the educational specifications, we go by grade level. So we figured there'd be one for 6th grade, one for 7th grade, and one for 8th grade.
My question is, what are we required as far as non-binary bathrooms versus what we're choosing to put in? I guess I was
Okay.
asked to answer that question. I really didn't know the answer to it. That's why I'm asking it, because I don't want to be left without an answer. So if you can.
Okay. We'll do some research and we can get you an answer on that.
Thank you. My next question is related to career and technical education. I was very happy to see a wood shop included in there. I'm basically a blue collar guy in a white collar world, I suppose. And I do say that, and I did ask some questions to some experts about this topic, about why not expand other than just wood shop, plumbing, electricians, the trades. What is the trend for middle schools and having the opportunity to teach our kids the ability to take care of their own homes, to possibly look at the professions of the trades where there's a big shortage as far as I'm concerned right now, and there's certainly a lot of money to be had there. I'm told the trend is moving away from that. What is the trend as far as having the trades taught in middle schools?
Rand?
well, obviously, there's always been, typically in a middle school, you'll see, as long as they have someone certified to do it, they'll have a wood shop. And then a lot of times now they're going more with a technical look where they're having more robotics and computers and coding and that type of tech ed. With regard to the actual trades, with regard to like plumbing and electrical, usually students who choose to pursue that are usually going to a trade high school, the technical high schools, if they're interested in that. But typically the tech ed component, the hands-on is mostly woods And then it goes towards more of a computer end, more of a coding, more of a robotics type, or a video production type setting. And I think part of that too has to do with safety as well, and has to do with the layout is also in terms of spacing.
Thank you. I'll let somebody else ask questions now.
Ms. Downing.
Thanks. Just quick, before I start, Tony, is the version you gave us that we're working on that's most current, is that on board docs now or no? Or can we get it up for members of the public to be sure they can follow along?
Yes, we will get it up there. I don't believe, I actually Mike can answer that. Let's let him.
I posted it right after you gave it to me, Tony, and then I informed the board of the same.
Okay, that was the one that was at like 5 o'clock today, Mike?
Yes.
Yeah.
The afternoon. I'm gonna get, oh, I'm gonna do that. Okay. Okay, it's the 4th draft. Okay. Okay, so a couple quick questions. We had talked about requesting a chart of kind of current building size and room breakdown versus the projected. Are we going to be able to get that in kind of relatively short order, or waiting for another draft? I don't know, kind of what's the plan for that?
That is something that we're still working on. A little bit of the problem is that some of the data that we have on existing doesn't take into account circulation space. So it's hard to calculate the total square footage if I don't have a good reference to the corridor and circulation areas. So but that may have to be actually.
It'll be helpful for all of us to know, even if the hallways are hard and that's the one item that you're not sure about. I'd rather have more information and say we don't have the hallways than not.
Okay.
People are nodding their heads. I think they agree with me. The other question I had is, we have talked a lot about state reimbursement and enrollment in our last meeting, and I wanted to just hear what you said. You increased the size of the building a little bit, and I know that the auditorium's a little oversized for state reimbursement. But where do, if we say that 511 is the enrollment number, because I think we saw the projections and it looks like that would be the number unless we have a nice little bubble next year. Where does the size of this building sit vis-a-vis where we are state reimbursement wise? Do you have any sense?
Yeah, right now, I haven't done the final calculation because the building keeps changing a little bit. But right now I'd say that it's approximately 15,000 square feet over. And I'll have to confirm that when we get the final number.
But a chunk of that's going to be the auditorium. So right, that just only if the rest of the building's okay except for the auditorium.
Well, no, no, I think there's the entire building. Most of the program contributes to the oversize. But you're right, the auditorium is the lion's share of it. But there's other contributing factors. Many schools only have a chorus and a band. A lot of them don't, they don't have an additional orchestra room. So there's things like that contribute to the size.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think my question was just answered, but I just want to make sure because I know we got a new report this week, I think, on the enrollment studies, and I wanted to know whether or not that report impacts the 511 number in this report. It's consistent. Okay. I wasn't sure how to read that one together. And then additional questions that I have been getting, and I don't know if they were answered in the Word document that had been floating around or if it had been asked, and Tony, this may be a question for you. Central middle schools, it defines their core values in this peace concept. Is that new to the school, or am I just late to the game?
What
It's on
number?
page 4. It's different than the school norms that all schools have, and I was just curious as to, is this something new for Central Middle School?
You want me to jump in, Tony? So I can answer that, Karen. So about 3 years ago, we engaged in a process where we solicited feedback from our parents, our students, and our staff to kind of just zero in our focus a little bit more on what we at Central were striving to achieve. And we did a series of questions and some focus groups and things like that. And so in addition to the district norms that we still use and are part of our full value contract, there were just a few items that came up in those conversations. And those words became the PEACE acronym were the ones that really actually kept coming back to us in our feedback. So that was I think it was the 18-19 school year was when we sort of pulled that together. So that was just a way for us to kind of take what we already were looking at under the vision of the graduate and the district norms and zero in a little bit more closely to what we were doing at Central. So that was where that came from. And when Fran and Roger were sort of asking about our educational planning, I just shared that with them. But that was solicited through feedback from both parents, students, and the staff a couple of years ago.
Thanks, Tom. So one of the questions that I actually have been continuing to get, and it might just be helpful, and I think overall there seems to be a difference between the definitions of equity and equality, and I don't know if your process in going through this is if you define those terms, because I think some people are they're curious and they'd like to understand what you mean between equity, because equity and equality are two different things and they're interpreted as different. And I know that equity right now is particularly can be deemed as a buzzword. So I was just curious, along with this PEACE concept, which I'm very interested in, whether or not in those conversations you defined what the school meant by equity.
Yes, and definitely from the time that this was developed a couple of years ago, and now obviously that word has become more and more prevalent in conversations. But at the time, really what the word came up was just related to student needs, and basically just looking at the fact that students have different needs and what are we doing to identify those needs and address those needs, and just how do we do that in our school day. So that was really the very basis of, from language needs to learning needs, what is it that we're doing to ensure kids have a successful experience in school based on who they are as individuals.
Got it. Thank you. That makes sense. And I think that's very helpful. Appreciate it, Tom.
Joe? Michael?
The question about the library, because I know we just got this, the last time we talked about the library still being kind of like the hub, or the media center being the hub of the school. Are we still seeing it that way in this draft, and the makerspace, is that still there?
Oh, absolutely. The makerspace is still there. And we also call out for some of the related arts to be associated in proximity with the media center so that there could be collaboration. It's going to be a very dynamic area.
And I know we submitted, we had a question doc last week, they submitted, I didn't know, we haven't gotten that yet.
I'm sorry, what? You submitted a question last week?
It's within the abstract, right?
Yes.
Yes, so the questions that you sent should have been in the revised. You all received, right, Roger, you received the questions, the Google Doc from the board?
Yes, we did. Yeah, Brandon and I did. We went over them. And I think we wrote responses to them, and I think we submitted them back.
Oh, well, we didn't get that.
Oh. We'll look into that.
Thank you. Joe.
Thank you. I was accused by a fellow board member of being uncharacteristically grumpy when talking about Central Middle School. Part of my grumpiness was satisfied by the visit I had over to Central Middle School and the time I spent with the teachers and their enthusiasm. So I'm a little bit happier, but I still have to see some enthusiasm by the community. I know we had a community meeting here. We had about 13, 14 people show up. A lot of those questions were not really on topic. I think I would be made happier, and I know we're under time constraints, but I don't know the desire to make me happy. I would certainly like to hear an enthusiastic room full of people telling us about what they feel about the ed specs and making sure they fully understand what they're commenting on, because they were commenting on off-topic things when they were here. They didn't understand really what ed specs were. So if we can try to somehow fill the room as best we can, I'd be made a lot happier. So if we could.
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I'm a Central Middle School parent and I mentioned this to friends and people are like, yeah, okay, sounds good. So it's hard to rally people. And I mean, people are going to be at the Carver North tomorrow. Look, we can interview them there, right?
Yes,
Or,
yes.
I mean, there's going to be a lot of Central Middle School parents there. I don't know.
Plug for the fundraiser for all 3 middle schools at Carver North tomorrow.
But I don't know, Tom, I know you're trying, you even sent out a special note this week. I mean, I get sometimes the Friday notes and then I get notes in between, and there was, you had a unique note on this. Did you get any feedback?
That went to Dr. Jones. I just was the messenger to make sure that that message got directly to as many people as possible. I also shared it with my our feeder school principals, and I know they were sending it out at the elementary schools as well, because obviously this building will affect more so kids that aren't in it yet than the ones that are. So we wanted to make sure we got it down to that group as well.
So at my PTA meeting last Friday, the topic came up about how we could get more input because while they like town halls, I think Kathleen was alluding to it, parents are just so busy right now that they're finding it difficult to show up. And so they asked if I would push out a survey. So I did it that afternoon, put it in the Friday note. But over the weekend, I only had about 14 people who had actually chimed in. So then on, I think it was Monday, I reached out to Tom and said, let's push it out again through the school level. And so at the beginning of the week, we pushed it out. It was up, I think, to about 70 or 80. I'm hoping it continues. We'll push it out again. So we are really trying to get, and it's just an open comment box so that they don't have to click through a whole bunch of questions, from us. They can just share what they think.
Did that go to middle school parents, or did that go to elementary as well, the school level?
Yes, Tom actually pushed it out to his feeder elementaries and the middle school. I've gotten it twice, for example. Yet I haven't, like most parents, I probably haven't responded. Maybe we should make it a homework assignment. Seriously, could we send it home with the kids and then the parents will look at it? Cody.
I don't mean to be pedantic, but just on this equity point, I always feel like if there's a way to say something that gets broad-based support versus being slightly controversial, it's maybe worth considering. So I don't know if it's what the process is, but to the extent that one word can be revisited because it is a little charged and a little political these days, and it seems like it doesn't have to be, given what Tom laid out as the vision. It's just something I would consider, especially for the document, and also if it's not going to have any material impact on the construction or planning, and prefer to have something that's more inclusive. That's all, or less controversial.
Okay, anything else on CMS? Okay, we'll bring this up in agenda planning because this is, we have to move quickly on this, yet we want to keep getting as much information as possible so that we can vote on this sometime in June. Yes, Ms. Costin.
One request has come to me about the survey, and if because maybe the drafts have changed, maybe people could be able to submit more than one comment. So maybe people are anxious to do double homework on completing the survey.
And did I hear right? We obviously got a lot of really super public comments from students. Is this the survey going to students as well? Any possibility of getting more student voice would be helpful, I think.
No, Tom's on here, so I'm sure we can figure out a way to get their input.
Yeah, and I think to that point, we now have another new draft. So what I had sent in the second email was an actual link to the prior, I think it was the third version. So what we can do is just add the fourth most updated version. And when I send it out, I can send it out again in a copy. At least my middle school students for sure can be copied directly on it, the current central students.
When do we have to decide how the snack line lines up with the normal food line? It seems like there's some compelling research around that question.
There'd be more during the A&E phase, but it's an excellent point.
I think it actually, I haven't looked at it obviously since our comment earlier. I think it's, we'll look at the document and see, it can make like suggestions about flow, traffic flow.
I was very impressed by that analysis.
I also think we continue to talk about more than 20 minutes for lunch, which includes recess, would be a wonderful idea, but that's a different topic. Anything else on this topic? No. Okay. All right. Thank you. This will be back to us very soon. Okay. Special Ed Advisory Council update. I am so sorry. We're just getting started. Dr. H and the team.
Hi, we've been here a long time. I guess we can go to the first slide, the second slide, sorry. The SEAC was formed in 2019 and was voted in by the Board of Education to provide advisory opinions regarding special education. We're here tonight to share those opinions. The SEAC continued working as subcommittees on the following areas: the eligibility process, IEP 504 implementation, enrichment and nominating. Our subcommittees are made up of voting and non-voting members, including parents and GPS staff. The changes and improvements that the eligibility committee has seen this year are a clearing of evaluations by Dr. H that had long been backlogged. Dr. H has hired a bilingual evaluation team, and in the 2021 action plan, Dr. H reiterated that the eligibility process must be transparent, easily understood, and collaborative. Dr. H is also committed to ensuring that the building assistant principals receive training and support regarding child find and eligibility. The 6 areas of focus the eligibility subcommittee identified were evaluations, consistency across schools regarding the eligibility process, lack of information and educational resources for parents on child find, communications with parents when their children are placed in MTSS, lack of uniform district-wide data collection management systems, and a lack of identification in behavioral mental health needs and interventions. Our recommendations from the 6 areas of focus, our recommendations are: when students score in the bottom percentiles on standardized assessments, they should be assessed or referred for eligibility testing. Reconsider how district and state assessments are being utilized to exclude students from MTSS services when students score high and ignored when students score in the bottom percentile. We know Dr. H is releasing a new MTSS manual in the fall of 2022. We are recommending that the new manual be circulated to staff and parents, and that GPS train staff and parents on the new policies and procedures to ensure meaningful collaboration and best outcomes for our students. Involve all of a student's teachers in discussions regarding evaluations in order to have a holistic view of the child. And updated the handbook to clarify GPS staff in child find. Currently, the GPS handbook doesn't clearly identify that teachers have a legal obligation under child find. Any events such as scoring in the bottom percentile in an assessment and/or parent outreach to staff should trigger a PPT meeting. And suspected disability language in the handbook is too vague. And the handbook should contain the same types of specific examples that teachers receive during their training sessions. And before I go, I know you guys aren't going to miss me, but before I go, I just wanted to say this. I really hope, this is in the report, but I really hope that it sticks here for families and for teachers and administrators. A lot of progress has been made, but there is still a significant amount of work to be done. Dr. H is spearheading a new special education rollout, and we would like to remind everyone of the tremendous shift this will require of teachers and administrators. It will be vital for teachers and administrators to learn how to meaningfully provide an appropriate identification and inclusive special education program that puts the needs of our children first. In education, I'm just going to repeat that. It will be vital for teachers and administrators to learn how to meaningfully provide an appropriate identification and inclusive special education program that puts the needs of our children first in order to ensure that every child has the opportunity to reach their full potential. There must be big mindset shifts, belief system shifts, and understanding of the role shifts. What we hope is that there is total transparency, grace, and support for teachers and for families throughout this transition. To make this transition successful, we must ensure that teachers and parents have the support they need, perhaps without even having to ask for it. So it's been a pleasure. We welcome you, Dr. H. Sorry, I keep calling you Dr. H. And we look forward to many, many more years working alongside you.
There was one more recommendation for the eligibility committee. So it's to increase consistency with the evaluation reports. So some of the evaluations have summaries of what children need, and some don't have any recommendations. We're asking that they do list what they mean, so they'll be in layman's terms, so all parents can understand what the strengths and weaknesses and how they will be assessed and intervention will be provided for their children. So now we're on to the IEP 504 implementation subcommittee. So some of the changes that we're going to see are a new staffing model will be rolled out for the 2022-23 school year that will consider more data points from the previous model. As we saw in the PCG report in regards to our current staffing model, the PPS office operates with a lean staff to meet its objectives. Given this model, the PPS office is not currently structured to provide instructional support or best practices to our school. So it's a big achievement for us to have a new staffing model, and that will start in the fall. Some other programs that are going to be starting are the new Unique Learner program, which I know has been presented to you, and the 2 co-taught classrooms at Koskop School that they have also discussed during these meetings. Also, all the CERC training by the Connecticut State Department of Education to teach our staff how to draft legally defensible IEPs and how to facilitate meetings. So that has also been going on for the past year. The IEP 504 implementation subcommittee identified 4 areas of focus. The first was effective and consistent facilitation of PPT and 504 meetings. The second was effective continuum of services. The third was staffing and specialization decisions. And the fourth was consistent awareness among staff of special education legalities. Some of the recommendations that the subcommittees came up with, and I think that Jen said this, but it's important to know that these subcommittees were made up of administrators, teachers, and parents, and they were very actively engaged in working together to come up with all the recommendations in these reports. The first recommendation is to promote a greater quality and consistency of PPT and 504 meetings. Some suggestions were to have a central facilitator in each building that is proficient on how to run these meetings and has the proper training. Another suggestion was to provide additional training for all the assistant principals and the designated person in the buildings to run these meetings. The subcommittee was unanimous in its belief that students' own classroom teachers and special education teachers should stay an integral part of these meetings. The second recommendation is to conduct routine audits of the current IEP and 504 plans to determine if the training we are currently providing are having a positive impact of the quality of these documents. And I think everyone discussed tonight, how do you need data? We want data to make sure that it's coming across in the 504s and the IEP plans. The second was to ensure that the new assistant principals receive appropriate supports such as training and coaching and reach defined baseline competencies prior to facilitating a PPT meeting. So we don't want on-the-job training. We want the people who are facilitating meetings to have the training before they're facilitating them. It's very complicated PPT meetings and there's a lot of legality, so we definitely want that. The third is to consider additional tools to recruit, train, and retain high-quality paras. Our students with the highest need sometimes have paras with them all day, or at least at some parts of the day. So we really want extensive training for those paras. We believe that in our district, we used to have a paraprofessional academy program. So maybe we can look into something so it's a high quality of para training throughout the district. The fourth recommendation was notify teachers in advance if they were receiving a student who requires specialized behavioral supports and provide sufficient training so that teacher is ready to respond to those needs from day one. Self-explanatory. 5, allow those students who require greater continuity of support to work with an assigned paraprofessional that will follow them as they advance grade levels. Currently, those paraprofessionals don't go along with the student. So if a student comes in at kindergarten, they could have a different paraprofessional in first grade, a different one in second grade, even if they have built that strong trusting relationship. So that's just something we'd like to be explored. Require all school to track the actual number of service hours provided to students. We hear social workers, psychologists, some students, they receive their services on the IEP, but also they go to those providers throughout the day. We're asking that that be tracked. So the teachers' hours that they're providing to those students are actually tracked outside of the hours that they may be receiving. And then we have an accurate documentation of need of those students. The seventh and last is to document clear eligibility criteria and an exit plan from the Wellness Center to transition the student into the general student body. The Wellness Center is in the high school and it's our students with highest need. We would also like to increase the availability of transition counseling services within the Wellness Center and to assist with the transition to post-secondary education and to allow for adequate planning, scheduling, and coordination of these services for the staff that are currently there. We have 2 more subcommittees that Caroline will present.
Okay, so we're going to discuss the Enrichment Subcommittee, much easier than during GEMS because it's a fun subcommittee. We are able to put on workshops for the GPS community and for the entire Greenwich community. Next slide, please. We have, for the past 2 years, we've had a winter workshop and we've had a spring workshop. And our winter workshop was what is a 504 plan? And we had Dr. Heiligenthaler and we had Judith Nadell both run that workshop, and we had parents from across the district learn the purpose of 504 plans, the difference of between 504 plans and IEPs. We had a Q&A, which led to great discussions between parents and staff. Next slide, please. And we will be holding our spring workshop. We encourage everyone to come. This is open to the entire Greenwich community. So please spread the word. Please come. It's with Dr. Lydia Soifer. It's going to be a 2-part series. So one will be held May 23rd, which is Monday. And then the second will be June 14th. They're 2 different, it's not the same one repeated, 2 different workshops. She's going to be talking about executive functioning. Executive functioning is all about self-control, emotional regulation, task initiation, organization, planning and time management, and how that's vital for our students in the district. She's also going to be talking about working memory. And working memory, I think she describes it as the sticky note of your brain. It lets us work with info that we have and keep track of what we're doing. So May 23rd and June 14th, please spread the word. It's actually going to be in person, which is really exciting. It's going to be at the Greenwich Student Center, or Greenwich High School Student Center. I hope I got that right. And finally, our final thoughts. So the CF was formed to improve the educational experiences for current and future students, future special education students in the Greenwich Public Schools. The success of our special education program is dependent on how committed its stakeholders, including the Board of Education, are to its improvements. If our work this past year has taught us anything, it's that there is strong, unwavering dedication from all of our stakeholders in persevering to provide more equitable access for our children with learning differences. We would like to thank Dr. Jones, Dr. Holligenthaler, the administrators, teachers, service providers, and parents who came to the table month after month to work together towards these goals. We would also like to thank the Board of Education for providing us with this platform to offer the advice and combined wisdom of all of our concerned partners. While we have significant strides to make, we have worked collaboratively and tirelessly to make improvements. We look forward to continuing this important work and carrying out our mission in the years to come. And I know we submitted a pretty lengthy report. We encourage you guys to read the full report because, as Audra said, this is the work of various stakeholders throughout the district, community members, and it has very valuable information. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Thank you. Any questions?
Yeah, let me turn it over to Karen, since you are on the committee, right? I thought it was Karen and Karen.
No, it's me and Karen.
You and Karen, sorry.
It was Karen.
It was Karen, now it's Michael. So can I turn it to you to sort of give us
So thank you. I think no one knows other than the leaders of SEAC the amount of hours that they put in. But what I know is that they don't do it to hear thank yous from the Board of Education. They hear it because they do it because they want results. And what you hear here tonight really is the product of 3, 4, 5 years of consistent dedication from dedicated group of people. What I really appreciate with this year's report, in all honesty, is 2 things. One, which you heard mentioned, was this cultural shift. 4 years ago, we would never have had a group of parents working with the board to present concrete recommendations on here are our next steps. I think that is marvelous. But also with that culture shift is the awareness we heard tonight, and it's worth repeating that it really is the consistent effort of all stakeholders. We are still in the early days here of shifting into a 21st century special education model. And it's really in the next year or 2 that it really is going to, where it's really going to be incumbent upon us partnering with general education and the entire school community to really understand how this really supports everybody. The other thing, though, that I really appreciate with this report that's worth highlighting is the real concrete recommendations about how we can continue to move forward. Like, I love the audit idea. I love that we're talking about qualitative data that assesses. We've been talking a lot about quantitative tonight, but we're talking also about qualitative data about how we can see how things are going and really continue to move the needle. There's a lot here that we just got this week. That we have to digest. This is a great report, and it's lengthy. So I look forward to more conversations. But thank you.
Okay.
I just wanted to say, I thought this report was excellent and very helpful and informative, and it shouldn't go without saying that it's groups of dedicated parents like yourselves and everyone else within that team that are constantly, I think, pushing us as the board and pushing our educators to do better by our unique children who have, yes, learning differences. And it's through your constant voices that we were able to get the PCG to do their audit report. And I encourage you to keep pushing, because that's how stuff gets done. And, I was thinking, as I was listening to your report, and obviously I read it a couple when we originally got it, I'm thinking, where else in this district can we put together teams of dedicated, energized parents like yourselves in different areas to focus on, because things are getting done. What's clear from this report is we still have a ways to go. And so on that point, I want to say I appreciate your patience in as it is a process. And Dr. Stacy, because I can't pronounce her last name, is doing that job, and it's going to take time. It's going to take time, and I think what you have realized as there's a team in place that's working hard, and we all saw the most recent email that you sent about the recent case, which is upsetting, but I do think we're definitely making strides, and I think the audit proposal that you suggest is something that we should consider, because it shouldn't be a one and done and now we're all fixed. I think that this is going to be something that needs to be evaluated over time and constantly to make sure, one, we are hitting our marks, and two, we are not slipping, and three, we continue to strive to exceed our expectations. And that only comes from a constant process of review. And if we don't have a constant process of review, then it falls short. And then all of the hard work that you ladies have done, as well as I'm sure there's men on the team too, but all of you that have done will fall away. Sorry, the man. There's more men, sorry.
Actually, coincidentally, our new community member is a man too, so.
Perfect. But I just want to say and extend my words of, I thought this report was great, and the work that you have all done is outstanding. Thank you for your help.
Joe.
You guys are the best. Thank you.
Christina.
I just want to thank you for what looks like to be countless hours of effort and dedication. And I know it's something that's a passion because of what you care about deeply, but it comes across your effort and your energy. And I want to thank you for doing that. And I'm so pleased, because I remember when the SEEK was discussed initially, and we're moving in a more collaborative direction, a more positive direction. Like you said, there's still ways to go, but moving on a better trajectory. And along those lines, I don't know if you want to share any goals you have for next year for your committee, just kind of your thoughts.
I think what's important is, it's a very ambitious action plan. And so keeping track, and of, what we're doing, what's working, what's not working with it. We have two huge rollouts of the unique learner program and the co-teaching program. We've never seen any type of programming like that in Greenwich. And we have to make sure that it's rolled out very thoughtfully, and that we're doing it justice. So I think those are big areas to focus on.
Yeah, and I hope that we have just as many pages of achievements as we do. We have more achievements than we do recommendations. And that's what we're gonna keep working together on.
Ms. Costa.
And it's maybe more of a question for Dr. Stacy, but I read multiple times in the report about staffing, and I know it's really hard right now to keep a building staffed. We've lost paras at our school. I know. I just wonder how hard it is right now to find the help you need to support the students.
So there's definitely a shortage in the state. However, we have been really lucky to be able to recruit really high quality teachers, and we've been doing the interview process and to hire for next year. And the quality of people who are applying, we have multiple qualified candidates. So Greenwich is attracting the staff that we need. I think the most difficult with staff is when they leave mid-year or there's a short term, let's say a 6 to 8 week leave. Those are very hard to fill because our highly qualified teachers have year-long jobs. So that's kind of the struggle in trying to fill that. We've been lucky to work with some contractors who have been excellent, who have been able to fill some of those roles. But that's where the challenge is. Overall, we've been lucky to fill our regular positions with really highly qualified people.
Thank you. Well, I'd be remiss not to say thank you as well. But no, I was on the board when this was a much different relationship. And so I just have to say, this is, and I know, Joe, you've spoken to this as well. We can't say enough about how the cultural shift, and it's you guys, it's Dr. H, it's Dr. Jones, it's this board, but I really think it's more of you guys and Dr. H and Dr. Jones. So thank you so much for what you're doing, and let's keep on rocking. Thank you.
And I just want to say thank you to the SEAC committee. They are great partners to work with, and we've been able to really do some great work this year. So thank you.
Action items, French textbook approval, Dr. Carabello.
Well, good evening, and I'm very happy that the chauve-souris was exited from the building. It's a French word for bat. I don't know if I pronounced it correctly, but I did look it up. So we're hoping that you will approve our textbook purchase for next year for our new textbook series at a cost of approximately $44,000.
Let me get the motion on the table. I'd like to make a motion to approve the French textbook as presented. Can I get a second? Oh my gosh, Cody is my second. Discussion. No messy. Okay, I'm just going to say these are so needed. I know I said last time, but I have a French student and I cannot learn without a textbook. So thank you so much. We need these. Ready? All in favor? That passes 7-0. Thank you very much, Dr. Carabello.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay. Next, Healthy Food Center certification. Dr. Carabello, Mr. Nanarello, anyone want to put this on the table?
So I would like you to do the recommended motion so that we can continue our healthy food certification. We have to do this yearly, and I would need you to read the motion as it is written on your agenda document cover sheet. There are two motions, so if you could read those and vote on them so that we can continue with our healthy food certification, we would appreciate it greatly.
This whole thing?
The whole thing, number 1 and number 2.
Well, I have to get on the table. So, okay, yes, let me hear them. I'll go ahead. Okay. Recommended motion to authorize the superintendent to take affirmative action to implement the healthy food option and combines food and beverage exemptions. Okay, sorry. Number 1, motion language for healthy food option. Pursuant to CGS section 10-21(5)(f), the Board of Education or governing authority certifies that all food items offered for sale to students in schools under its jurisdiction and not exempted from the Connecticut nutrition standards published by the Connecticut State Department of Education will comply with the Connecticut nutrition standards during the period of July 1, 2022 through June 30, 2023. This certification shall include all food offered for sale to students separately from reimbursable meals at all times and from all sources, including but not limited to school stores, vending machines, school cafeterias, culinary programs, and any fundraising activities on school premises sponsored by the school or non-school organization and groups. 2, Motion language for combined food and beverage exemptions. The Board of Education, our governing authority, will allow the sale to students of food items that do not meet the Connecticut nutrition standards and beverages not listed in section 10-221Q of the Connecticut General Statutes, provided the following conditions are met. 1, the sales in connection with an event occurring after the end of the regular school day or on the weekend. 2, the sales at the location of the event. And 3, the food and beverage items are not sold from a vending machine or school store. An event is an occurrence that involves more than just a regularly scheduled practice, meeting, or extracurricular activity. For example, soccer games, school plays, and interscholastic debates are events, but soccer practices, play rehearsals, and debate team meetings are not. The regular school day is the period from midnight before to 30 minutes after the end of the official school day. Location means where the event is held and must be the same place as the food and beverage sales. Can I get a second?
Second.
And the reason
It's
I did
actually
it
two
is
motions.
no,
I'll second them both.
okay, you're seconding them both. Do you see how fast I can read? I finally benefited my New York speed. Okay, discussion. Michael Joseph. Go ahead, Ann.
I can't hear what he said.
Can you explain what we're doing here?
Yes, we are having a certification that we will serve healthy foods for the entire year. We will not sell anything that is not on the list by Connecticut nutrition standards. We did this for all year this year. And what it entails is it does give us some additional reimbursements for the high school meals. It gives us 10 cents per meal for reimbursement. So that's why we would like to do it again this year, this coming year.
Ms. Downey.
So it's basically a requirement if you participate in the National School Lunch Program that you have to pass the certification, or Connecticut. actually.
Correct. You are correct.
Do people ever complain about the food? Is this like a controversial thing, or?
This doesn't have anything to do with the preparation of the food. The food, because of COVID, has been not up to par, but the cafeteria and the servery at the high school is starting to go back to what we had before, with homemade muffins, homemade pizza, soups, different types of salad bowls, RCI bowls, and it is going to be really good next year, so we can start the year off with the appropriate changes to our recipes and to the food that we serve at the high school.
Just out of curiosity, what's the most what's like an example of something that isn't allowed under this?
Candy bars, soda, things like that.
I could do it faster. I was afraid you couldn't keep up. It should take 2 votes. Okay. So on motion 1, all in favor? Passes 7-0. On motion 2, all in favor? Passes 7-0. That would have been really funny if somehow that changed. Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Carabello. Next up.
Thank you.
Calendar adjustment 2022-2023 school year. Dr. Jones.
This is a very easy adjustment. After a discussion in the region, several school districts, including us, did not account for the federal holiday for January 1st, which is going to be held on the 2nd as a federal holiday. So we've adjusted the calendar for that. And we didn't have to take a day off the back end because as Linda was, Valentine was recounting, there was an additional day that was pointed out in April. So it's an easy offset. It basically is just putting the federal holiday on January 2nd.
Ms. Downey.
Just a question, Tony, because we have, so basically in this calendar that has us ending whatever day it's got, I mean, it's a 180-day calendar, but so snow days is just addressed on the June notes, correct?
Yes, we always build in 5 snow days, but 180 days is what's required.
Thank you.
I can only ask this question, but given the fact that we are going so late this year, has the last week of school been addressed in terms of the fact that people are going to be leaving earlier at the high school? I know I'm switching categories, but it's just making me think about calendar. I'm sorry.
From my understanding, from Principal Mayo, that it wasn't a change in process at all. This happens every year. We're just expecting going so late that we may have more people alerting the high school that they may be leaving earlier. But then we're doing finals when? Yeah, they've addressed finals. It's actually that week before and tried to make sure that it fell in a more of a normal timeframe. Go ahead, Michael Joseph.
While we're on the subject, to clarify, because we've heard about a second round of parent-teacher conferences a couple times. That's a contractual thing, correct?
It is, and that really has risen from some work that some of our Title I schools have done. And the consultant actually that's in ARP for family and community engagement has worked with those buildings, and they actually moved to 2 parent conferences. It's been very successful in elementary, but the teachers had buy-in to do that, so they had to adjust their schedules. And we fully believe in the value of that as well. But we do have to figure out, because it either you've got more early releases in order for them to have time to conference, which impacts the calendar, or it has to be part of our bargaining with GEA, when we come to the table to see if we can build that in somehow.
I realize I didn't put this on the table. Can we approve the 2022-2023 school calendar as revised? Ms. Costin is a second. All in favor? That passes 7-0. Thank you. Okay, we do have the financial report and our grant presentation. Having said that, I think we did send Sean home because he was quite sick. I'm going to put this on the table. We really don't, we've sort of done our part, and technically you actually don't need to vote on this. This is purely an update. We just have done that historically. We can continue to do that, I think, or we can table it, but I think it doesn't really matter. So can someone put the motion on the table?
You want the motion to just accept it? So moved.
Happy to second that. All in favor? Okay. Passes 6. All opposed? 1. Okay. That passes 6-1. Thank you. All right. Now onto agenda planning, which maybe you could email it to him because he's gone.
Maybe Tony can answer it, but fine. I will email.
Okay, thank you. So on to agenda planning. We have 2 meetings left technically, but I think we need to add one. Sorry, folks. So the priorities that I think we're missing is obviously a vote for the ARP funding and then CMS Ed Specs. But I think we could put the CMS Ed Specs into like a regular business meeting. Yes, Ms. Downey.
Just need to do the CMS Ed Specs. I guess the question is it worth us having another, we did just get these this afternoon, and I don't think any of us really felt like we had an adequate opportunity to review them. So might it be worth, we had a good productive Zoom conversation. If we did, I don't know if it makes sense to do a vote on ARP and a central middle school ed spec as a discussion about, I'm just throwing it out just in terms of minimizing the number of extra meetings.
And maybe do it via Zoom is what you're suggesting?
That would be exactly what I'm suggesting. Just to food for thought that if there were an opportunity, let's say next week, to both vote on ARP and have just a discussion to flesh out any additional issues on the central ed specs, just because then, again, we have to give the consultants time to revise it after we have a discussion, and then to put us in a position, I think, to be able to vote on the ed specs. In June, I don't know exactly when in June, and I'm going to make the June 2nd meeting, I don't know, or the June 16th, and how that plays in with the RTM vote on the building committee. We have to figure the logistics of that part out, but
yeah, as you point out in the past, the ed specs are separate from the building committee. The RTM doesn't need to see that,
but
right?
I think theoretically, we're supposed to have ed specs to present to the building committee, but question whether we have to do that before the building committee is formed or not. I don't know the answer to that.
I think we're kind of, I know Fred's in the process of forming a building committee as we speak, right?
But the building committee doesn't get ratified until the RTM votes on it, so.
Go ahead.
And the RTM would vote on the building committee in June.
They are scheduled to,
They have to, so that we can actually.
because
start.
otherwise then we lose the summer.
Oh, and the call is tomorrow. Very good point.
No, but I think they've been given placeholders with, was my understanding.
So I just wish there was a way that we could somehow get more of the CMS parents and North Street and Classcom and Park parents to buy into this. Yeah. I know, and Karen, you sent an email, I know, to the PTA. Just trying to, anyone else have any other out of the box ideas?
I think if we want to draw a lot of attention to it, we should just talk about the bathrooms more.
Motion to adjourn.
Potty humor.
Oh, man.
Okay, I mean,
You could write a letter to the editor and be like, I invite all parents to comment on this. And just put a link to it. And then if no one responds to that, then honestly, what else can we do?
I mean, I think you talk about it tomorrow night at Copper North. Okay, number one. Okay.
I expect all of you to attend.
Right.
I'm in Panama.
Hmm.
I'm very proud.
Are you good?
I'm actually going to a Greek summer party, so I can't make it. But
I feel like it's flowing.
I know because you wanted me to come back for my pour some sugar on the encore. I understand this.
That's right.
But we're losing it. So I think that, look, we can, I mean, Cody's right. We can just try, right? We can't do anything more than that. We need to move forward. We need to get the CMS ed spec approved. Okay, and Dr. Jones tells me we've had more input than we've ever had on ed spec. So there you go.
Maybe with the bats and the crumbling things, they just don't care. They just want something new.
Perhaps.
And we do think we have that FAQ somewhere. So I think that would help inform if we did meet next week, that would inform that conversation.
Okay, so I think next week we'll continue to see on that ed spec discussion. There'll be more feedback. There will be a revised, like you said, sorry, the Google document will be shared, and then we'll vote on ARP. So looking at your calendars, and let's do it via Zoom for next week. I mean, we've generally made Thursday a rule, but just as a place to start. But does anyone have a different opinion?
Can't do Thursday.
There you go.
Any other ideas?
Saturday night.
The 25th is, I can't. 24th is CMS chorus.
We were doing it in the morning.
No, Michael, just you probably can't, right?
That would be tough for me.
Could you do a later afternoon if you have the chorus concert? Could you do like a 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock, or 5 o'clock? I mean, maybe that's a solution with if there's concerts and events. Do it from your car. They can't call.
So is the 24th on the table? Did we talk about the 24th?
As long as it's not when the Central Middle School chorus is performing, absolutely. Which is at 7 p.m.
Concert day?
It's, yeah, for Central.
I have it on my calendar for 26.
Really?
Yeah.
Possibly I have wrong information. Only we use
How
some at
badly does
Central.
your kid want you there?
This is not the big concert, so it's
Oh,
okay.
it's a different grade.
Yeah, because I think the really big concert was like 2 weeks ago. It's fine. That's fine. We can make it happen.
What happen?
We can do it during the Central Middle School chorus, ironically, concert.
Well, no, I mean, if we could do it at 4 o'clock that day, then
Oh,
it
that's
doesn't
fine.
interfere with the concert. or 5?
Sorry, on the 24th is what we're looking at.
5:24, 4 p.m.
Does that work?
The Zoom, correct?
Yeah. Does that work for you? Okay. Is everyone else? Sort of? Yes? Okay, so May 24th, 4 p.m. ARP vote and CMS ed specs. Okay. All right, and if you have anything else, let me know. But then we'll obviously have a board retreat and then, which you're.
Will they send the answers to the questions that have been submitted before that?
Yes, we'll have the answers to the questions before then, right? Yeah, apparently. We apparently they had already sent them, so we will have them. And so if you have follow-up more, you can send them now as well.
When is the, when's the racial imbalance, back at the state?
June 1st, and Karen and I are joining Dr. Jones, and we are working on a presentation that we'll be sure to send around to the board.
And also for doing agenda planning, I think it is probable that we're going to have some first read of some policies for the June 16th meeting. We're working on some things that we need to do for the next school year.
And then we wouldn't vote on it until September.
That's okay.
I thought we were going to ask.
Oh, we'll have the agenda plan. That'll actually, well, I don't think we'll have that for next Tuesday. That would be for June 2nd. A first read of the agenda plan for next year. Yes, as well. If we do the agenda plan on June 2nd, we can either first read it on June 2nd and then vote on June 16th. We're fine? Okay. And again, as we will see, we've moved our agenda plans around a lot anyway. It's a starting point.
And the current board goals and self-evaluation conversation on June 2nd. In my head, if the strategic committee, if we can get there, but I think we are talking about Dr. Jones. My assumption was that could be a little bit about the strategic plan and draft stretch goals. We haven't talked about that.
Great.
Since we don't really have current goals.
Right.
Joe standing. No, you have a motion.
Hard change.
Motion to adjourn. I made it already. Okay.
Second? Okay, Karen, all in favor? That passes 7-0. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for staying.